Meeting February 26th. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Cummings. Here. Ms. McGuire.
Here.
Mr. Gasky, absent. Mr. Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Nordine here. Mr. Byer.
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Here. Next, agenda additions. Do we have any?
We have one professional services agreement.
Okay, we'll add that under the superintendent report for item F. Are there any other additions? All right, then, all in favor of saying the agenda, say aye.
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 All opposed? Next, we enter into public comment period. For this comment period, there's a card that needs to be filled out and turned into the superintendent. There's a 4-minute time period, and when you come up, please introduce yourself. Do we have any cards?
We do. First would be Tom Maxwell, who would like to talk about the recent board meeting.
Let's go over here. Yep. Okay, I apologize. It's my first time doing this. I'm Tom Maxwell. I'm a native of Oscoda. I've been here for most of my life. I'm 32 years old. I was born and raised here, went to high school. I moved away for college. I got a degree, moved away for work, and then met my wife and we moved back. Decided to move back to set our roots and hopefully raise our family here. I've prepared a speech, so I'll try and stay on topic as much as I can. I'm here to speak about the recent events by the Township Board, specifically Bob's resignation and the firing of Ann Richards. The lack of transparency and ethics and disregard for moral integrity from Bill Palmer, Tim Cummings, Aaron Weed, Marty Gayeski has embarrassed the community. To fire Ann in the way that you did made it personal. There was no explanation, no backstory, no insight, and any reasons in why she was fired. I was flipping through your notes on what you're going to go over your agenda tonight. There's more talk into a $500 or $1,500 increment decrease on a backhoe than into somebody's employment. You literally took the life out from under her and all that she's given to the community, essentially on a whim. Excuse me. For us to be here tonight, have no understanding as why Ann was fired, other than personal agendas, is disrespectful to the positions the four of you hold. You made it personal to Ann. It was nothing short of a public lynching. Ann deserves better. Our community deserves better. I do not stand here asking for an explanation. You had your chance for due process previously, and you failed. I stand here to tell you what you did was wrong and disrespectful to this community. It has been said in the community that Aaron Weed has been at the heart of this upheaval. Allegedly, he asked Bob Stalker in private to fire Ann Richards multiple times over a period of months. Circumstances of which we will never know the inner details to. They could potentially be illegal. If not, they are extremely unethical and unacceptable in this community. The recent actions of the four members of the board have shown us your true colors. As a younger member of the community, I wish to express that this lack of decorum is unacceptable. I also wish to express a sense of regret, as we have no one else to blame but ourselves. We have elected these four to represent us. We have made it easier for outsiders to be elected in our community than those that have been born and raised here. We have the opportunity to elect people that we know that will put Oscoda first, and we have failed to do so. But now we have an opportunity. I ask that we work together, we stand for better as a community. There's an official recall process that we can utilize, but to be clear, if we do so as a community, we need to commit to electing those that have been here, raised here, will put Oscoda first, and support our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Any other cards?
Paul Rakowski would like to talk about the Township Board.
Hello, Paul Rakowski, resident of Oscoda. I'm here to talk specifically about Super Weed, our township supervisor. First, a few years ago, he sent out attack dogs to his compliance officer to go against me because of our political differences. Instructed him to give me a citation, which I had to go to court to fight, and I prevailed in court. Then he lied about the city water having carbon filters in a public meeting. Then he covered up the fact that the PFCs in the public water are actually higher than some of the concentrations in the wells that they're screaming for municipal water for. Then he went on a boondoggle, spending our taxpayer money to an environmental conference right after they hired an environmental consultant to I guess, guide them in environmental matters. Spent thousands of dollars of our money at an environmental technical conference where we didn't need to have it for a political person. When he was at that conference, he spent over $400 on a hotel fee, which was more than double the cost allowed under government travel. He's bound by the rules of government travel, and that $400 a night at this hotel was more than twice the allowable amount, and somebody on this board approved that. And I don't know who that was, but that's corruption right there, spending our taxpayer money for more than double of what he should be allowed to spend money on for lodging. He tried to get me fired 3 times. He went to my employer, made up lies, told them lies about me, trying to get me fired. Fortunately, who I work for know enough about him that he's a con man, and that not to believe what he was trying to tell them about me. He wasted $6,000 of our money on a sewer survey when he knew in advance that that sewer survey had already been done recently and there was no need to have it done. He endorsed passing a law for selling dope in our township. He endorsed it, and then it was passed by a vote of the board. Next thing we hear is he's trying to get rid of our nativity scene in our town that we've been displaying there forever. And he's encouraging the members to agree with him to get rid of the nativity scene. Last but not least, the fiasco and the unprofessional handling of the matter with Miss Richards that took place at the last board meeting. That was atrocious. And she ended up being fired. And I'm here to ask for him to resign. And if he doesn't resign, I think it's our job as the people to fire him. Just as was talked earlier about a recall. Time for him to go. Thank you.
Any more cards?
Scott Moore would like to talk about expressing appreciation.
Thank you very much for allowing me a few minutes here. I'm not going to take the whole balance of the 4 minutes, but I did just want to touch base because I told Bob previously, back in January, that I wanted to have an opportunity to come to this meeting. I didn't know that it was going to be the remnants of what had transpired at the time that I asked to come to this meeting. But I came to shed light on some of the positive things that are going on right now. And right now our community, everybody's well aware, is in the heart and the heat of a fierce struggle to try and figure out what we're doing with our water. It's our responsibility to do our best that we can to ensure that the safety of our community is there, whether it's downtown or whether it's out on River Road or wherever we're at. And I know that this board that is here has supported the school quite a bit in regards to sharing information and trying to make things available. So for that, we're very gracious. I also want to thank the Department of Public Works people, because they continue to, on a regular basis, as we find challenges during the cold seasons and have issues with facilities, we're able to utilize intergovernmental relations on a variety of different fronts, and the DPW garage has been excellent for us out at the school, so I want to thank them. And with all the increase that we have in school violence and the issues that are going on and really plaguing our nation, at every time we turn around or turn the TV on or every news outlet, it's just tragic. Our Oscoda Township Police Department has been right by our side and standing right by us and doing one heck of a job, so I wanted to make everybody aware of that. And I had an opportunity recently to go to the Lions annual dinner, and they made recognition of our courageous firefighters and the way that they stand up through trying challenges when people's worlds are literally burning apart, and they go in and they're here for our community. And I know that there's a lot going on, and I understand that everybody has challenging decisions to make. I would just implore everybody that whatever decision comes to you as you're continuing to progress in your roles, make your decisions based on what you feel is right and integrity and based on that issue. Try not to let partisan politics get involved in your decision making. Judge it on your merits, listen to the people who elected you, and try your best moving forward. Obviously, there's a lot of healing that needs to transpire, and that can only happen if all of us take a little while to reflect and move on. I know from our perspective out at the school, we're here to help in any way that we can. I know that I've had the opportunity to meet with many of you on an individual basis and continue to open ourselves up for that if we can assist in any way. I do know that there's discussion in reference to replacement of 2 critical positions, and I can say this: Bob served this community with a tremendous amount of integrity and hard work and dedication, and he will be missed. And that being said, Bob knows that he wants the township to be in better shape after he's gone than while he was here, which is a characteristic of a good leader. So as you guys are going and progressing that process forward, I would just recommend that you consider utilizing some form of facilitator or mediator as you do that process that takes into account what the community wants, and take inventory of the attributes and leadership that you're looking for from your constituents, and then progress forward in that way. And it's one of the most critical positions in this community, so please give your best effort, and I'm assuming that all of you will. If we can do anything to help, we're here, and we're grateful for all that you guys have done for us. So thank you.
Yeah.
Kathy Woosterbarth would like to talk about the Instacoat purchase offer, transparency, and a now summary.
Hello, I'm Kathy Woosterbarth. I actually want to mirror Scott's his thoughts on stating some positive things that are happening in the community, and it's pretty timely. In the last couple of weeks, we've had RAD meeting, Restoration Advisory Board meeting, and the NOW meeting, which is Need Our Water. It's a community action group that has been formed to address some of the water contamination, so I wanted to take this opportunity to share that with everybody. We have during our meeting, we've discussed our priorities, that we've established a social presence. Our group is on Facebook called Now Need Our Water. The contact information is nowactiongroup@gmail.com. During the course of those conversations, we did prioritize some legislation that needs to occur so that we can readjust those, the 70 parts per trillion, which we as a group think is too high. And there are multiple ways in which we want to address that. So we are reaching out to the community and hoping that more people come forward to be interested in that. We have lots of people that are actually offering to assist. So we're trying to organize our efforts to figure out how we're going to do that. One of the things that we want to, I think one of our mottos is that we're going to start talking about stop the bleeding, and that's those plumes that you talked about and you've seen pictures of, and it literally looks like bleeding because those red spots are the PFAS that is going into our water supply and into our lakes. So we are looking at establishing some mottos, and that's one of them. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is not related to the Now Group at all. It's about the Instacoat purchase that was, part of the business of running the community. I noticed this on the agenda, and there was a purchase offer of $25,000 for this building. I would urge the board to accept that offer in their efforts to sell their property that they have and also invest in a community-based business. So hopefully when that comes on the agenda, we'll keep that in mind. And I also want to mention, like some other people previously have mentioned, about transparency. I know that many of the board members I respect, and Bill Palmer being one of them. So the events of a couple of weeks ago were upsetting to me, but I have respect for the board members, and I know that the decisions that were made were had to have been based on some information that they had that I feel will be coming out at some point so that we will further understand the actions. But it is a lot of work that you do, a lot of very difficult decisions, and hopefully in the future you'll make an effort to be more transparent about the decisions that you've made. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we move on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the work session minutes, the work session minutes of February 9th, regular meeting minutes of February 12th, and work session minutes of February 15th?
Just one small correction on the work session minutes of February 15th. Indicated that the meeting started at 2:03 a.m. I want to assure everybody we don't hold our meetings after closing hour. They're all before. It should have been 2:03 p.m., I believe.
Duly noted.
Anything regarding the payment of bills for $134,587.59? Any comments regarding the Live Extreme Ministries chapel conveyance?
Are we going to take a tour of the place, or are we just going to take the word of the person involved?
We are waiting for them to provide us some additional information. So the answer is we're going to try and validate that they've met the requirements. We have some documentation, but there are some other conditions that they may or may not have satisfied that came up in discussion. So we've asked them to provide additional materials.
Okay, so you're going to get a nice document of issues. My question again is someone in authority from this board going to go there and look at this?
We certainly can. What we're really looking for is documentation of the investment and a certificate of occupancy, I think, based on the requirements. But we could, and I think they would be amenable to that if we so desired.
Good.
Any other comments? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call.
Mr. Byer.
Yes.
Mr. Cummings.
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer.
Yes.
Ms. McGuire.
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, subcommittee reports and project updates. First one I have is regarding the Phase 5 planning grant for the bike path. We just got approval for that for $27,000, which will be the planning from Old Orchard Park to Iargo Springs. Next is the community center.
Yes, so the OCC Subcommittee is organizing a spring fling event at the OCC on May 19th, and there will be details to follow. I'm sure they'll be in the newspaper.
The next one I have is regarding the DDA Lighthouse location. They made a decision that they want to put it in front of the artisan market within the parking lot that's next to the old IGA building. So their next step for that will be to request township approval to put it on that location. Update for the RAB meeting on the 13th of February.
Yes. So last week's, couple weeks ago, RAB meeting here at the library was positive. And however, to echo a sentiment from Ms. Wisterbarth a few moments ago, there was a question that I posed to Mr. Mars, which had to do with extending the curtain that we talk about, shielding the contamination from extending beyond the base into the community. And I discussed with him, or mentioned to him at the meeting, to extend it further north and to extend it further south. So we essentially build a curtain underground to prevent that contamination from seeping more and more off of the base, essentially stopping the bleeding, as the metaphor is. And though that question was accepted, it was deferred until later in the meeting, which really then at that time was not really addressed. It looks like the Air Force is still trying to decide what their position is on what they're going to do, but the short little curtain that they're proposing right now isn't sufficient, in my opinion. Anyway, so I'll continue to pursue this question and topic, and that's it.
The Air Force has responded to our access agreement for the new GAC plant location. We are having that reviewed right now by our attorney. I also received updated MDEQ residential well PFAS test results. I've posted those results on the Now Activist Group Facebook page and the Veterans Facebook page, so those are publicly available. Last Monday, I had a meeting with Senator Stamas to give him an update regarding our water main extension. He strongly expressed his displeasure and how long that project is taking, and I had reassured him that we are actively pursuing that project. As Ms. Ruthsbarth had mentioned about the Need Our Water Action Group meeting that was held, I thought that was a very good meeting. They had representation from the group that's over by the Grand Rapids area from the Plainfield contamination, and also people from Alpena, where the airfield there has PFAS contamination. And finally, I have regarding the Rotary meeting for the park planning, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, Mr. Stalker and I met with the Rotary last Thursday. We presented the plan that was proposed for Beach Park. The proposal was to move the band shell, and there was some concern by the board members that since they were integral in providing that band shell to the township, that we present the proposal to them and get an okay from them that would be to their liking. And indications were that they were very receptive to the idea, seemed to think the design that Becker and Rader had provided that we showed there, my opinion was that they felt positive with that. And I think, Bob?
I would concur. And I have not had a chance to read it yet, but we did receive a letter in the mail today, which I assume reflects that support.
They said they would send a letter
Yes.
with their approval for the project, so we can move forward with that.
Does anybody have anything else?
I'd like to mention that IOSCO recycling efforts are kicking up again, and they have a meeting tomorrow night at the IRESA building from 6 to 8 p.m. if anybody's interested. I do plan on attending that. I know an invitation was sent to all the board members, so I will be going to that.
Anything else? All right, then we move on to our reports. First, the strategic planning work session schedule.
Yes, we last had a strategic planning session on February 15th, and it was discussed at that point that another work session would be of benefit. We didn't get to all the items on the agenda due to time constraints, and there were at least a few board members who wanted to revisit the recommendation from the Millage Advisory Committee and talk about that some more. And the other piece of that puzzle potentially is the pending park development plans. Our consultant was going to bring back some more definitive information and hopefully put us in a position where we can consider authorizing pursuit of grant funding for our project prior to April 1st. And to that end, I had gotten a communication from Beckett and Rader, and they had identified potential dates of the 2nd, the 5th, and the 6th as good dates for them. Not that we're locked into that, but by way of reminding everybody, hopefully you received that. So with that input, I'm looking for the board's consideration as to when an appropriate date and time might be for our next work session. In terms of urgency, I would suggest we do it relatively soon. It would be of benefit to move the discussion along relative to the millage, so that we are well within the deadline to submit ballot language and so forth in May.
Does anybody have dates available? I know they had recommended either the 2nd, 5th, or 6th.
I'm unavailable on the 5th and the 6th. So,
Yeah, I wouldn't be available on the 5th, but I would be on any of the other days.
Friday then?
I only have availability in the morning of the 2nd.
Yeah.
I could do the morning. Morning
Morning's fine.
Morning on that Friday?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, what time? 10 a.m., does that work?
10's good. Good for me.
All right, I make a motion that we have our work session on March 2nd at 10 a.m.
support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Nordine. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, Township Superintendent recruitment process and parameters.
Yes, I've put together a draft recruitment ad with the intent of hiring a superintendent. It had been my suggestion that that position be filled prior to hiring any supporting administrative personnel. That would allow the new employee the opportunity to participate in hiring what would likely be key staff members. Assuming we wish to proceed on that basis, then I wanted the board to be aware of and comfortable with the parameters set forth in the recruitment advertisement before we posted it. We would post it assuming that approval is granted in some of the locations mentioned at the last board meeting, in addition to others where it would come to the attention of candidates. In considering the advertisement, I wanted to draw everybody's attention specifically to the proposed salary range, which represents a compromise between what the basic pay plan provides for and my salary currently. And I put the salary schedules that would demonstrate that on the board table. They weren't in the packet, but you can see the bottom of the compensation plan, what my salary is currently as compared to what the compensation plan provides for. That's, I think, primarily a function of long tenure, frankly. So I wanted everybody to be aware of that. I also provided information from the International City Management Association and the Michigan Township Association to give you some frame of reference on averages in Michigan for similar-sized municipalities filling these types of positions, along with other states, but Michigan seems particularly relevant. I had also talked with a consultant we'd done business with before after speaking with Mr. Weed, that would be Vitrano Consulting, about doing a salary study if that was deemed to be advisable. That would take 3 to 4 weeks. I've attached communication from Mr. Vitrano outlining that. He's also associated with an executive search and recruitment firm now, and he offered, if we were interested, to provide a proposal to do that. Given the cost, the likely cost of that, it would seem that we might want to solicit proposals competitively. You're probably talking $12,000 to $15,000, that ballpark, to do something like that. But in any event, he has offered, and he has familiarity with that process. So given that, I'm seeking direction from the board as to the content of the recruitment ad as it's currently constituted, and also would need direction as to where the board would like the application materials to be received. I sort of left that blank at your discretion.
Comments?
Yeah, I have two. Number one is your last comment about where these applications should go when they're received here. 2 weeks ago, there were, during all the consternation about Ann's job, the idea of personnel instructor or personnel manager came up, and that was your job to do so-and-so, as alleged by at least one board member. So I think we, to be consistent, ought to say that these applications go to the personnel guy, you. That's number one. Number two, I've talked with Bob, and you all saw in his letter that he would like to start a consulting business after leaving us. I'm thinking that a good start for that business would be to allow him to set in on whatever kind of interview structure or mechanism our leader has in mind. But I'm thinking that Bob would be a good guy to set in and just kind of hear what these candidates have to say. And I very much would like him to be there.
I should be clear. I don't want anybody to think that there's a linkage between my employment and any intent to start a business at a later date. I'm certainly happy to help. But
I didn't mean to imply that.
I know. I just want to be very clear on that.
So that's my two inputs.
I agree with that. Are there any other comments?
Well, I would agree with Bob's advice to not make any other hirings of personnel until we have a superintendent in place, so that that person can help that filling that position. I think that's advisable. That recommendation, Mr. Stalker.
Any other comments?
I took some time to gather some information about the council management type of government that we are going to try to pursue again. Given in light of the different discussions or dynamics of the last board meeting and other things over the last couple of years, I just thought it might be a helpful tool for all the board members to have. And it kind of gives you an understanding for council members of how that works and how you work together as a team, and hopefully give us all the guidance to be able to do that in the future. There's also this one about local leadership for everybody that might have a few helpful things in there.
We're all set.
Okay.
I have a few comments. One, recently on our Friday work session, a member of the public during the public comment period suggested the idea of an interim superintendent and the possibilities that might present for us. I think we should at least, as a board, consider that. I'm intrigued by it. I've had some conversations with Mr. Stalker about what that might look like, pursuing something like that. But I think it has advantages and disadvantages that I think we should at least consider. And also a suggestion that I've heard a couple times and that was recently brought up again tonight during public comment was the idea of a facilitator. I don't think that's a bad idea either. At some point during this process, with the in my opinion, with the level of magnitude that this decision presents for us as a board, I want to take it extremely seriously, and given the dynamics that have been repeatedly referenced here tonight, I think it might be wise to do everything we can to make sure we get it right. I'd like to think we could do that on our own, but I don't want to take any chances. So that's where my thoughts are coming from on that. And finally, the salary range in the ad, it's pretty broad already. I'd like to see it either broadened on the lower end or shifted lower a little altogether, possibly. Given the thought that Mr. Stalker's salary currently is a function of long tenure, and I know there was effort to make a compromise, but I'd like to maybe see that compromise a little lower. I just don't want to commit beforehand to paying a large sum of money too early in this process. I know making it broader or lower might scare people away. I'm aware of that, but I think I would like to consider lowering that a degree or broadening it. Those are my thoughts.
Anybody else? I think the salary range based on this data that we have here is actually kind of low. I think that it should be more around the $80,000 range, because a lot of these municipalities that are within the same population we are paying $100,000 to $140,000. So I think in order to draw in very qualified applicants, it'd be better if we refrain from going at too low of a range.
I recognize that, and I noticed the same thing in the material provided. I just think that it's tough to compare I think we're a unique entity in a unique location. And I know in the scope of all those things it seems low, but in the scope of what I see day to day here in this community and salaries what they are, I just think given our unique situation. And I know that might be tough to compete out on the open market of these type of employees, but.
Is there anything else?
I don't think we want to limit ourselves too much to too tight of a scope though either, because you're not really sure what type of applicants you're going to get and the experience levels that they have. So I don't think you want to shorten it too much, that's all.
I agree, Jamie.
Yeah, I would agree with Jamie's comments. I think I was thinking of a rate range of between $80,000 and $100,000, and you know, we're really not going to know until we start having some applicants come in. And if someone presented themselves that was highly rated coming to us, I think it would be worthwhile to be able to up that salary to a range to be able to attract the right person. And in terms of your idea of the idea that was presented at the Friday work session about a interim, my feeling is that's just delaying the inevitable. But what could happen, depending on who applies for this job, if we weren't able to get, you know, a really top-notch person to apply for this, but we got somebody that we thought could do it for a short term, then that might fill the bill in that instance. So I would like to see us have, and based on the numbers that are in all this information we have here from other areas of the state, most of these are listing cities and counties. So it's a little difficult to relate that to township management, but from what I was able to get out of these numbers, the $80,000 to $100,000 range seemed to be most appropriate, and to attract a quality person. I don't like to think in terms of replacing Mr. Stalker, because that's nearly impossible to do. We have to hire a new superintendent, and we have to bring in somebody that over time will be able to do the job. And based on whatever experience and qualifications that person has, I think we need to give ourselves the latitude to offer an appropriate salary to entice that person to come to our area. So it's not going to be an easy job, but I think the sooner we embark on that road, the better. So.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I would hate to see people put too much credence in worrying about Oscoda Township versus cities and so forth. My understanding, and I could be wrong, is that we have more people in Oscoda Township than the two Tawases put together. My understanding also is the reason that we are a township and not a city and we're not incorporated is a very common sense economic deal. The biggest taxpayer in this township is Consumers Energy. With the dams and the property upstream and downstream from the dams, it would be financial suicide for us to incorporate and have city limits. All the tax money that comes to us from Consumers Energy is upstream and would be well west of where the city limits would be. That's why we're still a township. You know, I remember when I was teaching school, kids were all paranoid, like Tawas is a city, and they always say, you're not a city, you're just a township, like you're not developed enough or you're not big enough. That's crap. You know, it's simply because we don't want to lose a bunch of money. So we're a city, but we still retain the township thing. I mean, township is not a bad thing. Think of all the metropolitan townships, you know, Shelby Township, Kenton Township, in the Detroit area. Are they little punks that shouldn't be considered? No. So don't worry about the township thing, you know. We're a town. There's only 3 incorporated cities in the whole county. Whittemore? Are they better than us? I don't think so. That's my comment.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to advertise in our local paper, the Michigan Municipal League and the MTA, at the rate of $80,000 to $100,000 range, salary range.
Support. Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Weed. Roll call.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
No.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, no. Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Anything else you need on that one?
Well, clarification, I think, does that provide the discretion to advertise in other venues like the International City Management?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay,
I'm sorry.
that's my assumption. But,
Yes, that was
okay.
what we had talked about
All right.
before. Yes.
Next, backhoe sale pricing revisited.
Something maybe a little less significant. We talked about the used 1994 John Deere backhoe a few meetings ago, and it was approved for sale through an auction process. There has subsequently been additional discussion at the staff level, prompted by some questions, and that included an outreach to the regional distributor for the manufacturer, the regional representative. Specifically, the board had approved selling the machine in March with a minimum bid of $10,000. We're trying to sell it in March, and I've attached the meeting minutes in my report. The information we have now indicates it may be advisable to reduce that minimum bid amount to $7,000 with the ability to ratchet the number down if we don't find buyers. Another approach might be to list it at $10,000 per the original action and then reduce it in $1,500 increments if it does not sell, down to a minimum amount if we want to establish one of $5,500. But in any case, there's some question, I guess, from our standpoint as to whether it's going to sell at $10,000. And I think the original, we had talked about some flexibility to reduce the amount, but that did not, that's not reflected in the action that the board took. So,
Comments?
Yes, it was my understanding that what we weren't considering in the initial motion was that the reverser and I guess the transmission in general would need to be replaced in this case, and that amount of work would devalue the used equipment because the reverser had already been serviced once, and John Deere won't service that again. They only want to replace it. So isn't that the case?
that is fundamentally accurate. In addition, it's my understanding that there are other components that you have to replace as well, in addition to the reverser.
Right.
So it's sort of a major overhaul kind of thing.
Exactly, which is why I think it makes more sense to start with the lower number than to return to the 10,000 and try to ratchet down, because people who know anything about this equipment are going to look at that as overpriced. That's my thought. I don't want to waste time.
I mean, we've talked about this a couple times, so I guess everyone probably knows pretty much, at least my thoughts on it. I'm a little perplexed by the entire situation. This is like the third or fourth time we've talked about this. It keeps coming back. We keep giving it a price. It keeps coming. Like last time we talked about listing it for sale in March, and it's not even March yet, and it's back again. So I just don't understand the rush to unload this thing, and why not take our time and try and eke every cent out of it. But I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse there, so I guess I'll leave it at that.
The information that's come forward is that this machine, its value is about somewhere in the vicinity between $6,000 and $7,000, because the amount of repairs that need to be put into it are about $6,000 to $7,000. So that's one of the reasons for revisiting it, is to price it appropriately for the bidding. After learning that, I felt that the $10,000 was still too high.
I appreciate that. And I mean, I ultimately want to sell this thing for the right price. I don't want to mess around and waste time, but I'm just frustrated by the situation. Like I said, this is the third or fourth time we've discussed it. It keeps coming back to haunt us. And again, I don't want to waste time, but it just has been a frustrating situation for me. Ultimately, I just want to get rid of the thing, but I want to get rid of it for what we can get rid of it for.
Any other comments?
I'm just wondering about the possibility of aiming at a possible market for us for this, rather than just hoping that the general public might be interested. Could we put a price like 7 or something like that, and then go to a facility that repairs heavy equipment, like Northern Truck here in this town, and say, hey, you're interested in this for 6 or 7, you can fix it, and the labor will basically be free, and then you can sell it for whatever you want when you get it fixed, and take as much time as you want. Would that be an attractive thing to, or not? Is that a dumb idea?
I would say not. One way to kind of back into that would be to let those types of businesses know that we're advertising it and it's available on the auction site. I mean, frankly, some of the people we've been talking to are well aware of the circumstance, and if the price is attractive and they're aware it's for sale, they may do that very thing.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
Sure. So I move that we post this piece of equipment, starting the bid at $7,000, with the ability to ratchet it down. Do we need to provide a parameter as to what ratcheting means here? Okay. Okay, so let's just throw in $500 increments or something like that here, so that we can start to see whether or not we're getting bites and interest, because right now we've received nothing.
Is there support?
I support that.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, I'm first, and I just want to stress, I don't want to be aggravating in this. I just want to stress that. No.
Okay.
My intention is not to bother anyone, I promise. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, Instacoat Products, property purchase offer.
Yes, we've received a property purchase offer for the, what was the Office of Economic Development property and structure on Georgia Drive. It is from Instacoat Premium Products in the amount of $25,000. The company has asked that it be presented to the board as written. I've attached their offer, the property card, and the for sale listing. We've got it listed for $65,000. The assessor has it valued at $54,688. So the three basic options that I would see, there could be others obviously, would be to accept the offer as it's presented, reject it, or authorize staff to engage in negotiations. So I'm looking for direction as to the board's preference there.
Comments?
I think we should accept the offer based on some of the things that we talked about at the pre-work session on Friday, which I will announce here at the public meeting also because there was no public there to participate. That building hasn't been used in years and is falling apart. It was also vandalized a couple different times, and they also took out all the copper plumbing ripped it out of the walls, and the bathrooms have been destroyed. The township did not put any money into it, in hopes somebody was going to purchase the building and, maybe want to reconfigure it or do something different to it, so we did not invest in that building any further. It's my understanding, I believe, that they're not even interested in the building, but they are going to be creating a apartment complex that's directly located behind that, and they're going to have it join that property right there, which is a great thing for the community and the housing needs for the people in Oscoda, so I think that we should accept the offer.
Any other comments?
Well,
You just changed my mind. That was easy. I'm thinking, my initial thought was a lot of times we sell buildings for $1, where Alpena Community College is located, $1 for that building, and other really low prices, but there were always jobs attached or promised, to the purchase. And so I was thinking, I don't know, is the land worth $25,000? Because I agree with Jamie, the dwelling is pretty shaky.
I think the land value and the assessment information is between $9,000 and $10,000.
Okay, well, makes sense to me.
Anything else?
My original thing was let's authorize the staff to bargain a little bit, but.
well, I just wanted to point out one thing in the proposal they made, that it was dated 3 days after we approved having Real Estate One be our sort of in-house real estate firm. And it is, Ms. McGuire pointed out, I'm always in favor of helping our local businesses any way we can. And so if selling it at the price they've asked is what the board would like to do, my original thought, kind of like Jim was saying, was that let's negotiate a little bit. I thought a more reasonable price might be around $45,000 based on the information, the assessor's evaluation, and then in the information there's a true value in there of $45,000 something that's in some of the other information. So I was thinking something in $40,000 to $45,000. So my thought would be that since we do now have a sort of a in-house real estate firm, might be time to turn that over for them to negotiate that price. Or, like I said, I'm always in favor of helping our local businesses any way we can. So whatever the board feels they would like to do, I'd be fine with.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept the bid from Instacoat for $25,000.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine. No. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, USDA grant certification requirements.
Yes, I had put a checklist in the board packet of USDA requirements that must be met before we can solicit bids. There's an updated checklist on the board table that we just received. And I'm looking for authorization to take the steps necessary to meet those requirements moving forward. I had attached documentation relative to the certifications that were required. It appears, and those are under the township responsibilities, those certifications would be paragraph 2. It appears as those have been met. Obviously, it's been checked. But the one thing it appears we have outstanding at this point is item 5, the right-of-way certificate, and that is included in the packet also. It appears as though we are hopefully going to be in a position where all the required documentation can be compiled and submitted from all the involved parties to gain approval to proceed. So I was hopeful we could get approval from the board to facilitate completing these documents so that we don't hold the process up between board meetings. It's possible that will happen before the next board meeting. So somebody on behalf of the township at a minimum would have to complete that right-of-way certificate.
Comments? Is there a motion?
I would move to facilitate preparation and submission of documentation as required to comply with township responsibilities.
Support. Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Weed. Roll call.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, Beckett Raider contract execution.
Yes, there is a professional services contract agreement with Beckett Raider on the board table. The board had approved entering into an agreement with them, accepting their proposal. However, there's some question whether the actual contract agreement was brought before the board previously, so we thought it prudent to do that before we send the signed copy back to them. It's obviously patterned after the standard professional services agreement. It would need to be concluded by April 1st. That's the grant deadline. Is how we got to that date. We've talked to Beckett Raider about the time frame. They have signed it. The gentleman actually brought it to the work session that we had recently. So apologize for it being on the table, but again, the vast majority of it is sort of our standard PSA documentation. The key part is really the first few paragraphs that talk about the scope of work, the term, and the consideration.
Comments?
Well, I understand having the 1st of April because of the grant deadline, but does that mean that their contract with us, then they wouldn't be involved anymore after April 1st?
For the design phase, for the original scope of work, putting together the plans, we could do another contract with them moving forward for implementation.
Okay.
Or yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
I would move to execute the professional services contract with Beckett Rader.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, the Asable River Canoe Marathon Program Book.
There is essentially a request being made that we consider placing an ad, as we have done for many years. The standard approach we've taken is a full-page ad. You can see the schedule there. That would be $500. And they provided a copy of the ad that we've used recently featuring Old Orchard Park.
Comments?
Just that we've always done this, and I think we should continue to do.
Yeah, I think it's a nice ad. People can camp at Old Orchard Park and ride on the river and watch the race go by.
That's right. And I think that we ought to spend whatever money it takes here, since we are one of the two focal points and the better of the two. I mean, Grayling is at night. I don't mean a better town. I just mean, how many people, I've already taken a shot at Whittemore, so, but, it's a nighttime start, and how many people are going to be out there, and here we, it's noon on a Sunday. It's great, and boy, we ought to be able to spend some bucks on this. I really think this town should do more to facilitate the crowds that we have here than they do. Too many stores, I think, are closed, and this is a Chamber of Commerce thing, I guess. But I mean, as far as a welcoming tent and so forth, just a little hospitality that's really visible, and I don't ever see that. So let's do our part and pay what the fare is for this big ad.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request from the chamber or the Canoe Marathon group.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, we're on to our second public comment period. There is not a card that needs to be filled out, but there's still a 4-minute time limit. If you come up and speak, please introduce yourself. Does anybody wish to speak?
You walk worse than I do.
I didn't plan on speaking tonight. My name's Matt Jack. I'm a resident of Oscoda and Ann Richards' partner, 10 years. But that's not, I don't think she needs defending, especially her work ethic. I think that's almost defenseless. I think what's gotten lost in all this is Mr. Stalker. I think he's done 27 years. I mean, and I was struck by something Mr. Palmer said tonight. That's the only reason I'm up here. You're saying we're going to get some great guy. We're going to pay him $80,000 to $100,000. He's not making that. He's been here 27 years. You're not going to find anybody better. I find that condescending, and I think your condescension is why we're in this mess. And that's my opinion of that. And other people, I think Ms. Westerbar said you might have some information leading up to Ann's firing. I wish you'd share with everybody. I think the whole community would like to know. That's all I'm going to say on that. But I just found that to be rather condescending. And I'd like to thank Mr. Stalker for his service. I mean, he's done this township a great job, and I think he's been left behind and has received so much support from everybody. Can't say enough, but thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak?
My name is Kerry Osborne. I own Power Sports Plus here in town. And as far as I know, I've never seen anybody in this board come into my business and introduce themselves. Everybody blames the community, but every time I wanted a building for storage, I'm paying $1,500 a month out in storage because Ann Richards kept the little top secret buildings that were for sale. I'm not condoning how it was handled or what it was done, but I feel our township does not support local businesses because, like I said, nobody's coming to my business to introduce themselves and to promote the township. I moved up here 6 years ago. I worked at a couple places over in Tawas. My kids went to Tawas schools for 2 years. I pulled them out and put them in Oscoda because everybody told me you don't want them in Oscoda schools because it's a bad school system. Well, that was the consensus of the local community. So against that, I pulled my kids back here to Oscoda, and they did immensely better. My daughter gets straight A's. It's not because the material's easier. They're happier in this community also. I vowed that I would not leave this community because I enjoy the river, the lake, just, you know, the type of atmosphere that I do. I deal with many customers all along Loud Drive, Cedar Lake, that they play on the lake, they play on the river, they play on the snow, they play in the dirt, they run dirt bikes. They call me no less than 5 per week asking me what's going on up there, how's the weather, and, you know, just a matter of whether they should come up for the weekend or not. And, you know, I do discuss with a lot of people nothing about the township or what goes on because it's none of my business. The chamber approached me once about being a member here when I opened up. Since then, they haven't been here. So as far as this wonderful local support of local businesses and everything that this community has, I don't see anything evident, and I'm not asking someone to beg me to be part of the community. I'm going to be here regardless whether you like it or not. I'm very vocal, I'm very outspoken. Out of $85,000 of revenue that comes into my shop, $2,200 is local dollars. Because for that part, my people are the weekend people, okay? But when I hear the local folks talk down of the cityites and all that come up, those are the people that keep your community going. I'm an implant. I moved up here 6 years ago, but to be part of the community, I'm proud of it. I don't say I'm not part of Oscoda. Wherever I go, I wear Oscoda wear. I'm an owl. My kids are owls. My wife's an owl. My colors for my business are blue, gray, and black. I promote that, but I would also like to promote standing behind local and doing what you're doing. You know, I feel change has to come regardless of how much you don't want change. And sometimes you got to ruffle the feathers and stir the bushes to get done what has to be done. And I feel some of what was done was at some point had to be done. That's what's you know, been the consensus of what's said. So, but with that being said, we've got a lot of room to grow here. There's a lot of facilities. The Air Force left everything behind for everybody to use, not just to keep as, you know, what you want to delve out to your favorite specials or whoever begs the loudest or has the most money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak?
Hi, my name's Don Jack, and I've known Ann for 12 or 14 years. And we read the paper there a couple of weeks ago and seen how this was handled. And a lot of people that didn't even really know Ann is asked me what went on. And it just seems like there's not been a good cause. Usually if this is SOP, the way that board people do business, that she should have been, had a meeting and explained what she was doing wrong and laid it out to her and given her a chance. I guess she did talk to one or two of you and didn't get much consideration there. But I think it was really, and so does a lot. I haven't heard one good comment about how the board handled it, not one. And I think it was disgraceful, and I'm not proud of this. And I sure won't vote for this. I didn't last time, and I won't the next time. I hope there won't be a next time for some of you. So, thanks for letting me talk. I think Ann deserves an apology, or at least say so in the whole deal. And so do a lot of people in town that I know of. I seen Ann, I've known her for 12, 14 years. And I've been pretty close to her, where I've seen she's been gone nights here or there, never got paid for it. She started out at $10 an hour for over the half of the time, I believe, that she's been working here. I've seen her out at the VA building, taking charge of that. I've seen her collecting the rent, seen her downtown when they was broadening the highway, talking to the contractors, trying to move things along. So I wish that you guys could get together and give us a reason, give the town people a reason why you let the girl go. If you do that, I think it might help a lot of people. Thanks a lot.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Yes, I would like to speak.
I'm speaking right now at this point of the agenda because I didn't have very much luck 2 weeks ago as far as asking questions, and I tried to make it abundantly clear in the last meeting that I had no idea that this ambush was coming or what the reasons were for it. I just was amazed, like, you know, what has this woman done so wrong that you would just kiss off 10 years of dedication to this town? You know, all I got is silence. 14 days have passed since then, and nothing has changed. No supervisor, no fellow trustee that voted for it, of the four, have made any effort to contact me. I was the supervisor for 8 years, and I probably wasn't the best one by far, but I never advocated some action by this board and only told and discussed what I was going to do with 4 members. You know, the other 2 that voted to keep Ann with me, I don't mean to speak with them for them, and I may be wrong, but I don't think it matters. You know? Am I the only guy that wasn't talked to, or were the reasons explained for this rather, you know, significant action? And my impression is the other 2 weren't talked to. But if I'm wrong, I don't think it makes any matter. A matter at all. If one person is out of the loop and is not approached about, geez, Jim, we got a problem here. We need to do this and that. Whether it's one person or 3, what the hell is the difference? Everybody should know what's going on. If I can quote a couple people that talk to me, maybe if I can, no, it's a quote, you won't get mad at me, because the language is a little rough. But I've had one person say, Jim, you still belong to that chicken shit outfit? And another just said, that was a chicken shit way to go, that operation. It was an ambush. So I haven't received any explanation, and I guess it's a little late now. I have two other things that I would bring up other than that. Number one is Mr. Maxwell, Tom, the first speaker the first time came up, and I thought he was a little rough on people that hadn't lived here a lifetime or 10 or 20 years. I am the supervisor that recommended the appointment of 2 or 3 newcomers to this town. Kathy Worcesterbar's husband, Tim and Bill. They seemed really quality candidates at that time, and I was happy to recommend them to the board. But I had somebody that turned out to be kind of a prophet. They said, Jim, this appointing people that haven't lived here a while is going to come back and bite you. And I said, why? And they said, because they don't have a background, an institutional knowledge of what has gone on. And I think that's come to pass. You know, I think the people that voted no probably didn't have a good grasp of what Ann has done 7, 8 years ago. Somebody briefly mentioned the VA thing, the complete redo. If you're a veteran in this town, thank Ann Richards for the whole new facility out in the hospital. She handled that all, and it was tricky because the VA said, we're not going to pay you a dime until it's done, and it's got to be done right. And so we had to finance that thing the whole way through because the plumbers and the electricians, they weren't going to wait for their money. So we had to pay out of our funds, and the VA said, we will pay you back at the end, but it's got to be right. So that's kind of tricky to handle financially. She did it smoothly. And that VA facility is awesome. Somebody also mentioned her being in charge of the redo of the Main Street, dug up Main Street that summer of 12. It was 6 years ago. I don't know if all the people that I have appointed realize what she did. She's out there talking to bulldozer drivers and everything. So anyway, I have another item, but on my board time, I might get to that. Thank you.
Well, now we're in the board comment period.
I'd like to speak.
Oh, okay.
Just for a few minutes. I wasn't going to speak it. You know, this is a great community, and what got done was just pitiful. What you did, how you went about it. And we're going to dig into these things. We're going to dig into them factually. We're also going to have a review of Mr. Stalker's evaluation, as you call it. We're going to dig into those things factually. The basis of your overall premise for Mr. Stalker, which seemed to hold through though, you can tear that apart so easily, Mr. Weed, and I think you know that. So this isn't, we're not going to turn the page on this, no matter what's spoken tonight. We're going to get together, and we're going to do what's right. So this doesn't end tonight, Mr. Weed. This is just the start of it.
Anybody else? All right, then we're into board comments. The floor is now closed to public comment. Does any board members have anything?
I do. I just want to let you know that you're probably all aware your assessment notices went out from the assessor's office. If you have any questions or anything, you can call them. The March board review is coming, and usually she gets quite a few visitors. Or you can call her office to make an appointment at 739-7071. Also, a reminder, the last day to pay your taxes in the treasurer's office here is the 28th of February before they go delinquent to the county. If you have not, you know, if you don't have your statement, you're not sure if you owe it, give us a call. We would be happy to help you. We do take a postmark, so if you have to mail it in, that type of thing, it is, as long as it's postmarked by the 28th, we will accept it in our office. And our phone number, you can reach the treasurer's office at 739-7471.
Anybody else?
Well, I would like to make a comment. It was referred several times about newcomers to to the area. And I would assume that probably is directed at me since I'm the newest member of this board. But I would remind everyone, maybe nobody knows, I bought my first home here in 1988. So in September of this year, I will have owned a home here for 30 years. And I was here before the base closed, and I've been here after the base closed. And so I don't consider myself a newcomer to Oscoda. I think I've probably been here longer than a lot of people sitting in this room. So I would not all the people in this room, but some of the people. The gentleman that spoke earlier was 32 years old. He would have been, if he was here then, he would have been 2 years old when I bought my house.
The floor is closed to public comment.
Yeah, we hear you, we hear you.
That's my only, that's my comment.
You will be invited.
The floor is closed to public comment.
That's my only comment. Thank you.
I hope you didn't misunderstand what I was trying to say, or maybe it's my fault, because I thought you and the others that I mentioned were quality people, and therefore that is why I recommended you. But there's the one flaw that I was warned about after the fact, that these folks don't know what went on 6, 8 years ago, and they aren't going to factor that in their decisions, and I don't think you did. Even worse, and I hope this is not true, that you didn't know about these things or you didn't care of what went on before. I can't get inside your head and say that's the case, but God, I hope it isn't the case. So anyway, I'm hearing, you know, I don't think I've slept for 2 weeks. But I'm hearing things like during the meeting the last time when we accepted Bob Stalker's resignation, and at least 2 of you said, boy, we accept that resignation with regret. I almost lost my lunch when I heard that. I mean, these are the people that are pushing him out. You know, making his life so miserable that even though he just got a new 3-year contract just 2 or 3 months ago, he's going to walk away. He can't deal with this anymore. This guy's had to work for 6 supervisors, and he's adaptable enough that he's gotten along with 5 of them. Something's wrong. Some of the things that went on, I talked to Ann just a couple of hours, maybe 3 before the last meeting. And things were said at that meeting, according to Ann, that if you are not removed at this meeting tonight, then we really have to sit down and talk about what you're doing. Why not do that before the firing, you know? Another person that was present at that meeting said, you know, I haven't been happy with things coming out of your office for about a year. She never knew that before. I never heard of firing a person and then telling them you were unhappy after the fact. It blows me away. So I will shut up.
Anybody have anything else?
I do. Speaking about, just to give an overview so you guys know where I'm coming from, if I ramble, speaking about recent events, the dynamics we have going on in this board right now, and the importance of moving forward. I am not happy with the way things went. I don't know if I could express my displeasure or dissatisfaction enough. I don't think we do it justice. I want that to be clear, though, that I was not pleased with the way things happened 2 weeks ago. That being said, we, the 7 of us, owe the community to move forward. We've got some big things coming up with the replacement of Mr. Stalker and Ms. Richards' positions. I think all these things that happened tonight need to be said because people have to get them off their chest. They're due. Everyone has the right to express how they feel, board members included, public included, but I just want to see us all move forward eventually. This process has to take its course, I understand that, but I just want to encourage everybody here and the whole community. I just don't like to see this going on. We've got a great community. I've experienced it firsthand, how great this community is, and I just I want to see us all move forward. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay, well then I guess I'll go again then if we're gonna do this now. Just so we can move forward. I want to apologize to the public and to Ann and to Mr. Stocker. I got here late at the last meeting. To be honest, I wasn't going to get here. I didn't think I was. Just had my first grandson, so I was not prepared to speak. I was completely stunned at the motion and the way it was handled. I think that we did a big disservice to Ann, and it's not just Ann. It's anybody, any employee, any other time you would document things or give somebody a chance to talk to them, like other people have said tonight, and that was not done. You yanked her life right out from underneath of her. And at 8, I didn't even understand the whole motion or anything, but like I said, I was not prepared to speak about that. It's no secret, Ann is my best friend. So I know that a few people that voted yes to fire her didn't want to talk to me about it because they thought that I couldn't be objective. However, Aaron and his wife both ran in the last election for offices, stating that they could both be objective. So I'm really not sure how that makes it any better. I have to say that I know myself and a couple other board members have worked very hard to gain the trust of the public because, let's face it, nobody likes the government, and it's not easy dealing with everything that the public has to deal with taxes and other things. And I've taken a lot of pride in trying to do that. And the 4 people that voted yes yanked that all out from every one of us. And now there's a lot of dissension in the community, on this board, and we have a lot of things to try to get to and try to work back to being a board again. And I think that's all I have to say.
Anything else? All right. I would just like to say that I agree with what you said, Mr. Nordine, that we need to move forward. We have a lot of progress that needs to be made in this township. There's a lot of laws and processes that need to be followed, and I want to ensure that that is done. I was not happy with how things had turned out for quite some time, how they've gone. I did get with you, Mr. Byer, 5 months ago and asked you to give me a call to discuss issues with the township, and I hadn't heard anything. So I'm not here to win a popularity contest. I am here to make sure that the township government functions the way it's supposed to within the laws and within the policies. And if that's what gets me recalled, I'm good with that. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.